Hey YouTube, I'm going to give a shout out to YouTube for all these instructional videos first. Secondly, shout out to marineengine.com. You get a great assortment of parts for almost any outboard or inboard motor you can that's out there. So marineengine.com for your parts. I have and I know my lighting's bad, but I got this boat from my dad 5 or 6 years ago. It's a 79 Ozark, and it had I don't know if you can see that under there, but it had a 7,900 horsepower Evinrude on it, and it had electric tilt and trim. And I talked to a guy, and he had this 1970 115 horsepower Johnson. It has the hydroelectric shift lower unit, and yes, I don't know if you can see in there, probably right here, the upper bolts line up and do mount to the motor, but down here, I'm going to get kind of a close-up shot of that. You will have to make, with some 3/8 all thread, a special bolt or bolts for each side of the unit. Both of them do have bends in them. I'm a metalworking guy. Real quick, I'll tell you, when I put this unit together and I figured out what I wanted to do with the bend, I bolted these in, locked them down, and the motor will then swing in to that lower unit to get those lined up. It is a chore, but that put electric tilt and trim on this motor. And as you can see, I've got the lower unit off of it. It's been taking on water, getting milky. And you know as well, if you know anything about the hydroelectric shifts, that's a big no-no. So I've had it off a couple, 3 times. There's my pull wire, my pull string. I've just got it up over there. Let's see, it's coming out from underneath so I can pull my wiring back up when I reinstall. Now, I want to show you some stuff that you don't see very often on these. And these are the solenoids. And that's the wire. And that are the knife connectors that connect up on the motor side. This goes down through the lower housing into the lower unit. This cap bolts over the shifting solenoids. This is the neutral shifting solenoid. That's the the reverse shifting solenoid. And these slide up and down. And this one here is a tube. And this one is a pin that goes through the top solenoid and through the tube. Let me see if I can get that lined up in there. Get that pushed in there. And it goes through the tube. And I'll show you. There it is. And when this, let me show you that. These sit down inside here. And I've already tested these. These solenoids are both good. But in general, when this shifts, you have 12 volt that goes to the upper solenoid and pushes down the rod. When you shift into reverse, there's 12 volt applied to both of these, and they both move down. Now, there are some tabs in the lower unit that these hit. The top one, being my thumb, has a hole in it. This pin passes through that top tab and hits the bottom one. And when you push down on it, it goes into neutral when the solenoid's activated. When the reverse solenoid's activated on this tube, they both are pushing, so you're pushing down the lower tab and the upper tab, and that throws it into reverse. I've learned a lot about this from Mr. Reeves, which has quite a few threads in post, and that's my little lower unit holder I made up at the shop. I am an iron guy, by the way, so I fabricate a lot of things, including the bolts for that lower tilt and trim to work on that 70. And again, that's a 79 Evinrude 100 horsepower tilt and trim unit with a 1970 115 horsepower V4 bolted to it. So I've got tilt and trim on here, and I've had this on the lake hundreds of times, and it works great. But now let's look down in here. That's the bearing housing, thrust bearing housing. There's the drive shaft going up there. I have tested this unit manually with grease in it to see if the components in the lower unit are working correctly. And I'm going to show you a picture down inside. Get a light going here, if you can see in there. Now we'll try to see if we can get that focused. That shows you that little hole in the top tab and the hole on the bottom tab below it. I don't know if you can see that. I hope you can. Get down there as close as I can. There it is. Alright, and I'm going to spin this a little bit. I don't know if you can see anything down there moving or not, but that's the tabs that will tell the fluid which direction to go inside that housing down there, and tell it whether it's in neutral or reverse. And of course, you know, this thing is always in drive when there's no power being supplied to the solenoids. So this is a little bit of a quick video and just trying to help. Basically, I pulled this off, oiled these seals, they looked real good, oiled the O-ring, put it back together, torqued it down. It's about 120 inch-pounds on the torque on those. On this cap, this little guy right here, this rubber piece goes down inside the cap through this hose, and then the C-ring locks it in. And I had put some sealant on this, but I was getting a failure on this, and I'm going to reseal it and hope that this lower unit stays tight. And then I'll also do a vacuum test on it. But I know I'm not telling you guys probably a lot of the things you'd like to know, and I'm no pro at all. The one thing I will say, this premium lube is the only thing you can run in an electric shift lower unit. Put anything else in there, you're wasting your time and money on these Johnsons. We'll give a shout out to Harbor Freight. This is a little brake bleeder, and I'm using it to do the vacuum test on it. If you guys have seen any of the homemade videos on how to use a filler, lower unit filler, to pressurize and put pressure on and vacuum on, basically I've got the end that goes in the fill plug, little clamp on it, hose, and this is off of a bicycle pump, and those are threads just like the end of a valve stem, and I've just clamped that hose to it. Then all I have to do is hook any little air tip on here to pressurize, and I'll just pull this unit off, this blue piece, I'll just pull it off this tube, and I'll clamp it right to the end of the vacuum, and then I can just pump that up by hand and do a vacuum test. So that's where I'm at so far. What I am going to try this time is this Permatex, and it's actually calls out it's for it has a high resistance to gear oil, and so I'm going to try that around that rubber seal and push it down in there and let it set up. It's a 24-hour setup, and then I'll do some vacuum testing, pressure testing, and see how we did with plugging this baby up. And once I get it put back together, also I will probably do a little test on these solenoids while it's on my holder here before I actually put it back on the motor. I think that's about it for now. I will check back in with you on video 2, and we'll talk a little bit about seals and how those are supposed to go face to face and lip out. Other than that, these tested good on the ohms, so these are fine. Oh, one other thing I was going to show you, the spline on the top of the drive shaft is a 4 spline, and you're not going to find any kind of a socket that's going to fit that to allow you to test this thing sitting on the bench, other than one like this. And I use this on, you can see this is a cheap little hand drill, battery hand drill, but this socket is one of those that has all the pins in it, and when you, I don't know how good you can see that, but these will spring push in, and so they grab whatever you're getting around. This is about the size of a socket wrench, and it will fit over that shaft and let me spin that to a high enough RPM where it shows me whether the shifting is working correctly on the lower unit. So hope that helps, and we'll get back with you on the second part of this video. See you later.